Hi guys, Mark here, MMR Trains and More. Hey, thanks for checking out the channel today. We upload every Wednesday, so if you're not subscribed, won't you consider doing so? We've got a lot of content coming in the coming weeks. Hey, we're going to follow up this time with kind of a part 2 of that resin kit that I started talking about in the last video. There's a lot that was done over the last week and on Labor Day. At the end of the Labor Day, I had the car ready for paint. So painting and decaling will be the part 3, if you will, of the video series on this Resin Car Works kit. It should be ready in time for our convention in a couple of weeks, the Sioux Line Historical Society convention, and I'll be happy to show my fellow members really a unique model. In this video, we'll highlight some of the pictures I took during the building process. Most of them are self-explanatory. I suppose I'll add a little text for each image as needed. There are a few things that I'll comment on as we go through the video. But for now, let's take a look at the Resin Car Works model as she comes together, ready for paint. I guess the first thing I'd say about the kit that I may have failed to mention the last time is that the model and some of the photographs that were included with the kit taken by and the model built by Frank Hodina, who is a famous name in the resin car and modeling circle. I pronounce it Hodina, and maybe Hodina. You know, it's kind of like my last name. There's about 2 or 3 different ways to pronounce it. So Frank, I hope I pronounce it correctly for you. Fantastic modeler and an expert when it comes to freight car construction, I would describe Frank as. The parts, as you see, are just laid out on this nice resin sheet, and it's basically just a matter of trimming them out with an X-Acto knife or a scissor or trimmer of some sort. It's a thin resin, so the knife worked fine in my case. The main parts that you start with, of course, are the cross members, or the stringers as I call them, and then there's coverings for the bolsters, and add those. They basically just glue on. Everything glues with ACC, by the way, I guess super glue if you will. The brake components are all part of the resin sheet as well, and as you can see from the drawings, everything is well detailed. There's a fair amount of wire bending to be done. Now, I went off the script a little bit, and if you remember, one of my big talking points on a previous video was to buy or find as many of these car parts, and in this case it was from Intermountain. And you know, if you're familiar with the modeling world, Intermountain provided a lot of detail with their kits. Now, of course, everything's kind of gone ready to run. More so, but this kind of stuff is out there. So in this case, I used Intermountain and Tichy parts for a lot of the components on the underside of this car. A special mention is made about the ladders, and I suppose here's a part I could probably maybe give a tip on. The instructions mention that Frank had a hard time bending the things with the pliers. Anytime you get anything etched, we think of, you know, for me at least, an old lesson from the metal shop I had back in junior high and some of the equipment that was used. And I always think of the old box and pan brake, you know, something that would clamp a piece of metal and you'd pull a lever and that would turn it over and make a nice 90-degree angle. So I started thinking about ways I could do this without buying an additional tool. It's great to have a bunch of tools, and maybe some of you guys have one laying on the shelf, but I didn't. So the light bulb went on in the head, and I thought, wait a minute, I've got a drill press vise, a machinist type drill press vise, and that's got really solid locking jaws, and my goodness, we can almost get the same effect here. You can see the parts as they come off the sprue, and then you can see as they're installed on the car. And it all just involves making a clean bend. So there you have it. The car is ready for paint. You'll want to check us out next week. As I record this, I'm still not sure how or what I'm going to paint it with, I should say. I've always been a big flow quill fan. That's long gone. I'm not going to use scale coat on it. Model Master, old brands like that, there's still bottles of that floating around. True Color is another option. But for the last 8 years or so, I've been experimenting with various results using craft paint based on a article in RMC many years ago. And you heard right, craft paint through an airbrush. The idea of the article was to use various components outside of the paint itself, not only to thin it, but to keep the resolution of the paint, if you will, intact, and to use it in such a way and to kind of mix it in such a way that it goes through an airbrush properly, doesn't clog, doesn't clump. You know, we think of craft paint as a thick, gooey, almost like a latex house paint, you know. Obviously something that won't airbrush. So if I use that, there's always a 15% chance of disaster. So don't worry, I'll be around to at least take some stills of the finished product. I'm not counting on any problems. I'm not assuming it's going to be easy, but at the same time, we're going to do a few test runs on the paint. And once I have it where I think it's workable through the airbrush, I'm going to paint it in a kind of a oxide red, boxcar red color that Suline had used on the repaints, and then go on to the decaling after that. So check us out next week, and maybe a fantastic finishing up video, or it may be back to square one, stripping the car and adding the details that fall off, right? Hopefully not. So we'll see you then. Now, if you would be so kind to subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in today, and we'll see you down the rails.